The following is a Global Television Network production, produced in cooperation with Kopp Clark Pittman Limited.
The news is good on the roads again this morning around the city. We've had no accidents to report downtown. Traffic volume still light, and the driving conditions this morning are good.
We'll hear about environmentally friendly cars in the next half hour of the show.
The provincial auditor has zeroed in on dozens of examples of government mismanagement, including children's aid societies. Doug Archer says it's a horror story.
Each morning I come in and I decide, what are the must stories of the day. They leap out at you from the newspaper or the radio broadcast, or they're just stories that you've been following, or they're stories that Global has broken. And what you do is you decide, which reporters are working that day, and you just, match up the right talent with the right assignment. Yeah, it's Carol Bruman calling from Global News in Toronto. Premier Peterson's going to be meeting with... are you covering that today?
Questions are being raised today about the safety record of a contractor involved in Tuesday's crane accident in San Francisco. At least 5 people died when a construction crane collapsed on a busy street.
I have to fill myself up with all the various bits and pieces of stories that are happening in the world on a day, so that when it finally comes time to make the decisions around 9 o'clock in the morning on what goes in the newscast or doesn't go in the newscast, that I have this whole selection, the whole menu of the world's information in front of me. One of the things that is a hallmark of any modern newsroom now is the news services. At Global, for example, we subscribe and pay money for the rights to use NBC material, CNN material, a chain called Westinghouse out of the United States, and all of these also give us access to another series of services which come out of Europe called Viz News, which is affiliated with the BBC.
In 1987, they weren't numbered and nobody kept records. The ministry shipped the licenses to the store owners by the pound.
Okay, so basically we just reserved cameras for Joy Melvin, David Hatch, Mitch Azaria, and Bill Turbevich.
Okay. Less than 1 block south of Commerce in front of the Pickle Barrel Plaza for a PD accident.
Most of my show is international today anyhow, India and Czechoslovakia and Nadia Comaneci and all those things, so, and I got to check in. Have you talked with Ottawa yet this morning?
No. You won't have a story out of Winnipeg on the NDP convention.
Right.
I've called New Brunswick like you asked,
yeah,
and they're going to get back to me on when Peterson is meeting with McKenna.
Okay.
I think a good assignment editor works well in conjunction with their news editor and their news director. And the more people sitting, in on these news meetings, debating and arguing over how we can get the best product, the stronger your newscast is going to be. Michael Fitzgerald is sick.
Okay.
So, Jeff, welcome to the 90-minute news. I think one of the strongest stories we have today is a follow to the auditor's report. I figured we could put Joy Melvin on that story.
It sounds simplistic, but news is what's new. I don't think I kid myself about what news is. Television news is basically a headline service that provides you the basic minimum of information that you need. I would hate to think that anyone is relying just on television news.
308 Morning. Okay. 131 Fenside Drive.
Okay, I think the lead story today is going to be on the auditor's report, and he really came down hard on the fact that there's needy children in the province.
$290 to everybody. Shamila just got in and said there's an accident or something at Domino's in Eglinton, and it's a mess, so avoid that. Thank you.
Bureau Chief Robert Fisher reports there are horror stories of misspending and severe criticism of the way the government monitors child care. There are Basically 4 ways that you can handle any given piece of information. You can do it as a full-up reporter story. The reporter's out in the field, he's filed a whole item, it's 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes long, and the anchor is only required to read an intro to that item. The reporter takes it away from there. That's one. Number 2 is a stripe, where we write, as it were, the reporter's script, but I have the anchor pre-record those words onto videotape, and then we cut the pictures to those words. That way we can get clips in, we can get actuality in, we can get other bits of natural sound in. The third is a voiceover, where we write the script in advance, but it's not specifically married to the pictures, so that the editor will see the words over here, and he'll cut a body of pictures that we think will more or less mesh, but the anchor reads that piece of script live as we're going to air. And the fourth way, of course, is just the brief, the copy story, where it's either not of enough importance to merit the larger treatment, or for some reason we don't have the visuals, we don't have the support to be able to back it up in a visual fashion, but the information has to go on the air, so we just write a copy story of 20 or 30 seconds.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're doing a press conference at 11 o'clock on the Children's Aid Society and the Auditor General's report. And then I've made a couple of phone calls, and hopefully Inga can set it up to get us into a foster home. Okay. So why don't we leave shortly?
The day can begin many, many ways, but the usual way is you come in, you go to the assignment editor first off, and she'll tell me what I'm assigned to do. Maybe we'll have a few seconds to discuss different angles, what we should do. Maybe someone will have contacts. Inga will assign me a camera, and then I'm off and running.
Yeah, maybe in a half hour, give them another call.
So when you see me running around with pulling my hair out, that's because I've got 1,000 things going through my mind about who I've got to call, what kind of answers I have to get, and I'm thinking about time, always thinking about time, because there's that deadline, click, click, clicking back in your head.
That leaves Toy Testing Council and Inglis Plant. I think we do Inglis Plant, so that's intro to Turbovich. Don't matter. The Mahongo necklace, which
These
is a
are
wonderful...
all clips. He's describing all the beautiful jewelry in the video right there.
I mean, you want to start off with the kids. You want to start off with the foster parents, and tell the story from their point of view.
Yeah.
Oh, we have an easy day today, huh?
Pretty straight up. Therese has her Cartier jewelry story, which she shot Monday night, which I've thrown into your pack today. This is Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yes, I need to buy some Cartier.
Yeah, right. You got $60,000 to spare. You're going to buy Colleen a little bauble for Christmas.
Red Fox, who is currently starring with Eddie Murphy in the film Harlem Nights, got a surprise visit from Internal Revenue agents yesterday. They seized nearly all of his belongings, including at least 7 cars. They even took the jewelry that Fox was wearing.
Good thing I brought that light in.
That's not me. Somebody else.
This morning we got, okay, this morning Joy's out, and she's doing the follow to the auditor's report. The association, the Association of Children's Aid Societies had a news conference this morning to respond to allegations. And I don't know yet. The news conference started 10 minutes ago.
The Ministry's recent announcements and continued study of the problem is a beginning step, but if we are to be successful...
They've got a lip treatment. It's like a lipstick. Yeah? Yeah, it comes in a little blue tube. And I put some on this morning of my own. I forgot that I had it. And I thought, oh, gee, that's what I should get the girls because it's really quite good.
Okay. Are we also going to start doing the update inserts with Richard starting today at 4:15? And the promo?
Start today. I don't think we should start till the...
4 o'clock update scheduled for Manana.
Okay.
I don't think we should start till the convention starts. The convention doesn't start till tomorrow
What
morning.
is the Mississauga?
Negatives of the job, it's totally unpredictable. I've never worked less than an 11-hour day in my life. I never know when I'm going to have to work or not have to work. There's no such thing as nights or weekends. you're always on call, and that can create burnout. You don't see a lot of older people in the news business. If you look around our newsroom, you'll be amazed. People tend to be amazed at how young people are. And I think the same is true of all newsrooms. There are very few people who retire in the news business. But everything that I said that's negative is also positive. I mean, it's a rush. It's a constant rush. You can't, because it's constantly changing, because there's always that pressure on. You always feel like you're doing something important. You always feel like you're involved. And it's not necessarily ever the same thing. I don't know how many jobs you can come into every day and know coming in that what you do today is completely different from what you did yesterday.
J41, 5-3. Now 5 is 3 tapes.
My favorite subject is the Santa Claus
Have we
parade.
seen a Bordeaux script?
No, I'm just going to check on it. He said he was sending it to me more.
Yeah, go find it. 12 and 15 are the mystery stories at this point.
Rape changes in Eastern Europe will be one of the key issues in the upcoming Malta summit this weekend. Mikhail Gorbachev, the Soviet president, is already on his way. Arrived in Rome today for a state visit.
And L13, 14 is out, 15 to come, but it will be a J.
He said it's not a question of blame. These aren't new issues. It's critical issues. We just want to say. And I said, so what's the answer? You want more money or what?
So really, they didn't say anything, did
No.
they? They said nothing here.
No. Okay, Max, let's hurry up, okay? I think we can maybe make the Boston Helen Scarborough.
Yeah, okay.
Also, Anthony,
31,
law
very
is
blue.
it working?
To be
Sean
neon
Allen
blue.
continues his
1
series
minute.
on immigration today. A review of the refugee law after almost a year. Bob?
Take 1.
It's Lisa David Wood, our
And we
fine food
key 'em,
expert.
put the right
Drops by to tantalize our taste buds once again.
Just got to get all these things done beforehand, so that it's all
20 seconds there. Stand by red.
ready.
15.
We still have a couple more items before they come to us.
Yeah. Okay.
In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And up.
34.
Check office demands more reforms. Olympic darling Nadia Comaneci defects, and Ontario's auditor wraps the government's numbers.
Roll green. 34. 2 to 4.
The News at Noon with John Daw, Bob McAdory, and Lisa Whitmore.
Also ahead, the new refugee law. Is it working? Sean Mallon continues his series on immigration. Today, a review of the refugee law after almost a year.
Hi, Inga, go ahead.
Mark filled you in on the address and stuff like that. This woman was worried that her house looked filthy and they're doing construction and stuff. So she didn't want shots inside. I said, well, that's okay. We can probably do it outside, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what you're going into.
Just pick it up at the third paragraph. Children's aid officials agreed today. Drop the first 2 paragraphs. Just children's aid. One of the biggest problems in an hour live news show is that it must start at precisely the right instant to the second, and it must end at precisely the right instant to the second. My production assistant in the front row, who is constantly timing all of the items and all of the bits and pieces of copy and tape and all the rest, is giving me in the back row a constant running time on where 20 seconds heavy or 30 seconds light. It's my job to know the content of that show really well so that I can make choices on, okay, we're 2 minutes heavy, we have to cut 2 minutes out of this show. So we can do it by taking this whole package out, just throw it out the window, or by we'll trim 15 off of that, 30 off of that, 30 off of that, and the chat at the end of the show disappears. The entire ball game can change in a heartbeat, and often does.
Hey, Lisa, coming up, Christmas gift ideas for the woman who has everything and more.
As I said it, I realized.
is low cal pie you're making today. All right. I feel better.
Oh, it is under construction. Okay, so I'll go in first, Max, okay, and talk to her, explain to her exactly what we
Stand
want
by,
to do.
Bob.
Whoa, this is cold out here. I don't like this at all. Don't let that sunshine fool you. It is really freezing. I'll be back with some more frigid weather details right after this.
The Canadian Council of Churches has launched a constitutional challenge.
So, W-E-D-D-I-E, and how much?
S-C-I-L-E-M-U-N-K-E-S.
Right. When did you start becoming a foster parent? 1979. 1979? Do you keep in touch with them still? Your foster kids?
Well, one of them we just married off in the fall.
Really?
Yes.
That's nice.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Bye-bye.
Beautiful. It's cold
As
though.
long as it's sunny. I couldn't care if it's 1,000 degrees below zero as long as it's sunny.
Well, I don't know.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, guys.
An editorial assistant is the first job you get when you come into the newsroom. It's very much a bottom of the ladder job. I suppose the most specific thing we do is information distribution. I mean, any kind of information coming into the newsroom, we see it first, and we have to get it to the necessary people up the ladder. You can't be easily offended. You have to be pretty tough, and you have to be able to take all the flack that's going to come your way. But in no way, shape, or form do I think there's any glamour at this level. I think the glamour perhaps is what you're exposed to and the information that you have at your disposal. One of the things an editorial assistant has to do is overnights. And you're the only person in the newsroom over the whole midnight to 8 in the morning. So that's sort of exciting because you are responsible for anything that comes across the wires or anything that comes across the radio. And I remember my keen parents thinking that they hoped that the CN Tower would drop or something of that nature when I was on overnights because that would be my big break.
I believe the NDP convention will look like this. Richard will open with a stripe on 5:30, and then in the 6, Brown will intro the Lioness item, and then Small will come on for a chat.
She was great. They were both really good. Like very accommodating people.
We were really lucky, I think, for a last minute kind of shoot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So where do you want to do your stand-up?
As lineup editor, first thing I do is I check what's available internationally for the newscast. I attend the editorial meeting in which they describe what's available domestically. I check wire copy through the day, and by early afternoon I'm in a position to put together a lineup. It's just set up for NDP.
Okay.
Okay, after the 3 o'clock meeting, we get down to writing the show, which is the part the anchors read. Is what we write. The reporters all write their own scripts, but the parts that the anchors read, we are responsible for it. And that can be intros to items or voiceovers or briefs. That writing is assigned, and I'll give the writers wire copy relating to what they're writing, and let them know where the information can be found.
But they only have one.
What time are you doing the update? Should be out there at 10 after. Okay. So then we're doing a live stuff from Winnipeg as an insert. Yeah. I don't know if it's live to tape or whether we need a space, but well, I love going live. I mean, I think there's nothing like live television, and that's the best kind of television that there is. I'm very lucky, knock on wood, that I tend not to get really nervous before I go on the air because I'm too busy. Well, the earpiece is, in my particular case, actually, Richard doesn't like the one that's molded to your ear, but I have one that's Victoria, our makeup person, had to put wax in my ear and get a mold of it. And it literally fits in, I suppose, like a hearing aid. It's got a wire that comes back behind the ear, so you're not really supposed to see it. You use the earpiece in order to be able to ask
do interviews with people who are not in the building. If someone, you know, Richard Brown is in Winnipeg doing the NDP convention, he and I have to talk.
Okay, I have to cut you off, Richard, sorry.
Yeah, 45 seconds between you and Richard, okay?
Well, nobody told me we were doing that, but okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask you about the infighting on this 45 seconds?
Yeah, that they want you to ask. He's got a 10-second setup, and then first question they want you to ask is about the
Oh,
infighting.
I'm sorry, I thought you meant for the 5:30. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
At the end of page 3, turn to camera 1.
Okay, here's the tape, so I'll go out and shoot those kids. Well, good luck on the edit.
Thanks, Max.
See ya.
I'll give him a count if you want, just a 10. 9 second. I'll give you a 9-second count through this.
They're going. It's Richard.
Okay, Ted? Okay, Richard can go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cue him. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. That's enough.
And in 2 hours from now, I'll be meeting with the producer of the show, plus the writers, and we'll go over what is described as a lineup. The lineup, of course, is the order of stories, and so on and so forth. And that's just another day in the life of.
Don Martin did a story on the Leafs, but they're on the road.
That's right. Tonight they're playing Canucks.
Yeah.
We'll
Then where do
have
they go?
we'll have early highlights.
Where do they go now?
And then they go Calgary.
And then Chicago or St. Louis?
It's a 5-game trip.
They go, look at this trip. Vancouver and then Calgary. They got to play back-to-back. They're playing in Calgary Saturday and then in Edmonton on Sunday.
It wasn't what most reporters would call a fantastic story, but that particular day we had a press conference. Press conferences are boring. Nobody likes press conferences. So I thought, how do you bring this story home? How do you personalize this story? So my main concern was finding a foster parent, someone who could talk from the soul and explain to me, you know, what's in her heart. Why does she do this job? She gets paid like $8 a day. I never give up. That's part of my problem. I've always been told that I suppose I'm tenacious, but I don't give up. And if I phone someone, well, that person doesn't want to do an interview. Well, I'll find someone else because I want to push and push and push because I want to know. People want to know.
5:30 first.
In the next 90 minutes, no charges will be laid for now in the death of Victor Davis. Czechoslovakia promises free elections within the next 12 months. And Smart Hockey, a new video to teach young... I forgot there's, those stories next is missing.
43 out of a 41, 3 clean. Then she'll turn to 1 out of for 42. 43 is 1 out of. 44 is 3 on a 2 shot with Belly and Susan in seat 1.
Children were have been sexually abused at group homes, okay? They weren't abused because there was no place for them to go. They were, all right?
Fred and Debbie Stillamonk has just married off their first foster child. She's one of their success stories.
They say 9 is out.
34.
There's Richard. Are they moving all the 10s? Could Marion please ask, because that's what I had understood.
3, 2, 1. Foster parents in Ontario are paid between $8 and $24 a day.
And we're going into the show. We're about 6 minutes from here.
Can I see that?
Isn't that what the 5X brief is about? Lauren Nystrom.
In the next 90 minutes, no charges will be laid for now in the death of Victor Davis.
Hello, Thalia. It's Mark. On R8, your question to Richard should be, what effect will the Lauren Nystrom charges have in Winnipeg at the convention? Okay.
3, 2, 1. Foster parents in Ontario are paid between $8 and $24 a day.
Marion, you don't need my R7.
We chronicle history.
but we do it in 24-hour periods, whereas historians tend to do it, measure it in either decades or centuries. We measure it in moments and seconds. And when you're there when a story is breaking, that's what gives me a real rush. For example, one of the candidates, Simon de Jong, has a button out. It says, Thalia, it says, de Jong and de Restless. The strange thing is you feel so disassociated from the newsroom because you're standing there in front of a camera with some crew members around you and headsets on, but you're in Winnipeg. You're on a riser in the middle of a convention, in the middle of 3,000 people screaming and yelling. And yet the only thing you're concerned about is the camera, because inside that camera and behind that camera is the audience. And they're the ones that you're really working for.
A Canadian
Stand by
record
red,
was broken
voiceover.
last night in Toronto at the Joyner auction of important Canadian art.
On the teleprompter, you will see, for example, the fact that you're going into a story, it will say SOT, which is sound on tape. So you've finished your last words, the director has rolled into the story, and you know there's a piece of tape as soon as you finish that last word. That piece of tape will run. You do see that. You don't see camera changes on that. Your floor director tells you, or you follow your floor director, because there's the teleprompter right there, and the floor director has got his hand underneath the camera saying, you're on this camera, and they might decide to switch, and they'll swing you over to the other camera. The reason we have the script in front of us is in order to be able to put down which cameras we're at, where we're going to turn. If we're going to go from camera 3 to camera 1, then, you write these big arrows, and you put, turn or dip or whatever, and you do it, and you write down which camera it is.
Okay, 29X is a brief, everybody. T29X is a brief.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, Ottawa 4, 3, 2, 1.
The tide of
Finished.
Cloud cover around Manitoba. Across the Great Lakes and heading up to the far north, there was more cloud cover along the Gulf of St. Lawrence and moving into Newfoundland, all associated with a low pressure disturbance out there, and it's cold along the east coast. Let's take a look at our map for today and again tomorrow. So this ridge of high brought us a fair amount of sunshine across most regions here in Ontario, and cloud cover more so around
Videos will be distributed free of charge to all PNC and video clubs in Ontario.
And that's the news for this Wednesday. I'm Claudia Shuras on behalf of Richard Brown in Winnipeg. Good night and see you tomorrow.
Well, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's really weird. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
I love what I do. Sometimes I hate it. Sometimes I absolutely despise what I do. But in the end, despise is too strong a word. I really do love what I do. There's no doubt about it.
There are days you wake up and you go, I don't think I feel like it today. And then 15 minutes later you go, yeah, and you're reading the morning paper and you go, wow, there's a great story, there's a great story, there's a great story. And you're up and gone, head for the office.
It's hard to describe sometimes, and I always think about it, and with other journalists, and you're sitting there, but it's the daily rush. It's going out there, being part of history. I mean, the biggest kick for me so far has been the fact that I was at the Berlin Wall when it came down.
It's a great adrenaline rush when the show, the red light finally comes on, and the show goes to air, and it works, and it hums, and it cooks.
I've got the greatest job in the world. I'm paid to do what I love.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.